2, 3, 4. I came across a drifting ship. I took a look inside. I found a note that someone wrote that said, take her for a ride. I set a course for sights unseen, went out to open sea. To my surprise, a bunch of sailors joined along with me. Now we're sailing on the mystery ship, and all the sailors here are really here. There isn't any cost of membership. All that you gotta do is join our trip. Yeah, I'm the captain of the mystery ship, and I'm a-calling all aboard this trip. I'm really hoping that you'll enjoy it up on the mystery ship. So bring a friend and come along with us aboard the mystery ship.
No, that is not a manatee in heat. That is a foghorn, safely guiding us out of the harbor. There you are. I'll live with it. It just seems a little dark. Oh, I'm missing a light. There we go. Duska, say hello to the nice people. Child of mine. How we doing, everybody? As per usual, your brother's running a few minutes behind. What else is new? Tell me something we didn't already know. Zoe running a wee bit behind schedule. How's everybody doing? We are halfway through the week, people. This is the hump. And we're over it. Officially over the hump. Let me make sure we are live and kicking everywhere we're supposed to be. It looks like we have a damn beautiful picture over there at Rumble. That is great. Fred cares. It is wonderful to see your face. You said you can't hang out, but you'll watch the replay. Fred, we love you, sister. So nice to look up and see you. Look at that. 8 people lurking over at Rumble. I love you, Rumblers. I love my Rumblers. This is for you. American man, something tells me you might be out there. I know some of the other names, but just so you guys know over there at Rumble, you rock my world, and I'm hoping to rock yours in return. Checking in at Pilled Foxhole. Oh, my goodness. Home of the free, land of the brave. That's it. That is it. We have a wonderful, wonderful, oh, my goodness, we've got a whole bunch of people hanging out over there. Great to see that. Let's check in at Twitch. See if we're twitching that itch tonight. Are we twitching that itch? Are we twitching that itch? There's Twitch. There's my Twitch. Twitch.tv. With the biggest screen of all of the channels. It appears we are live at Twitch. I'm going to say hi-de ho. Hi. D. Ho. Sailors. In case anybody pops in over there. Hi-de ho. Sailors. Nice to see at least nobody's over there. That's okay. Where does it tell you how many people are watching it over it? It doesn't. Okay? Well, let's go to YouTube. Let's go to YouTube and see who's hanging out there. Oh, man. Oh, man, we got people. Snoitpo, how you doing, my brother? Good to see you. Glowbug, nice to have you aboard. Normal Williams, always a pleasure, little lady. Sir Nasty Nate, what is up? What is up, sailor? This one's for you. So nice to have you guys aboard. Hi-de ho. Well, that is wonderful. Welcome to all the sailors over there at YouTube. It's nice to be back on the tube. Love it or hate it. It is another platform and another place to reach people. Let's check in with the wonderful and reigning champions, the champions over at D Live. Yes, the champions, sleeping stars. How wonderful to look up and see old Shell right there. How you doing? How you doing, kiddo? Great to see you. Great to see you. Was reading the chat while the show was warming up, and learned a few things like Amethyst Cat is her hand is healing, and she's not 100% yet, but it's coming together. It's getting a little bit better every day. Glad to hear that. I learned that Val Kimber's mother has been under the weather, and she's, I guess, having good days and bad days. According to Val, it depends on the day. Val, I hope your mom is doing wonderfully. I had no idea. It shows just what I know. I'm writing down Val Kimber's mom. We want to keep her covered in prayer. good to see all the wonderful people hanging out over there. There's a pile of them. There is an absolute pile of them. Look at that. Little kitty of ours, Amethyst Cat, gifted a 1 month subscription to Lynn Winters. She was the sole person who didn't have a first mate badge over there, and now she does. Thank you, Amethyst Cat. You are a wonderful, wonderful little kitty. I'm going to clean out the cat box just for you. Just for you. Besides, it's getting a little ripe. It's getting a little ripe, isn't it, Duska? Duska, on the Luska. What's going on? Cat got your tongue? Come on. Speak up. Speak up. Gonna have to get her fixed. Gonna have to get her fixed up. Okay, to the hellos. To the hellos. Gloria Paddock. Wonderful to see you, Glowbug. Hope you're doing wonderfully. Mad Pogue in the house. Mad Pogue says, oh, snap. That reminds me, my cat boxes. Yeah, man, get after it, buddy. That ammonia will kill you when you walk in the door. Lynn Winters, great to see you. Sheeple Beware in the house. Val Kimber. And your mother. Amethyst Cat, good to see you. Sleeping Stars, always, always a pleasure to see your smiling face. Always. Hope you're doing wonderfully. Jayla 17, all the way from New York. Hope you're doing well, sister. So nice to have you aboard. Haven't seen Captain Grams lately. Dang it, I need to write to her and find out what the hell is going on with Captain Grams. See what she's up to. What is she up to? Duska, the baby sister of Chucky. Not quite. Spudley in the house. Spud is kind of on the quiet side tonight, but when he says things, man, you can bet they mean something. They mean something. I was going to call him tonight because I wanted to ask his opinion on John Barrymore. If Spud felt that John Barrymore was an actor. I love John Barrymore. My favorite of all of his roles, of all of his wonderful film roles, my favorite thing that he ever did was, of course, the Twilight Zone, where it is the devil himself, where he plays this monk, kind of a guy, brother, whatever his name is, in the monastery, and the guy comes in under the pouring rain. That my favorite role ever of Mr. Barrymore. All right. Our hellos are in over there. One last peek over at Twitch. Nope, just that Zoso dude hanging out. I'm glad he's there at least. Going to YouTube, Bruce Wayne checking in to say hellos. Gloria Paddock there. Norma Williams, wonderful to see you. Snoit Poe, yes. Sir Nasty Nate. We've got a bunch of wonderful people hanging out there. Great to have you all aboard. Thanks for hanging out over there at the Tube. It's going to be a wonderful time this evening. Let's get over to the home of free speech in America. I'm talking about Pilled Foxhole, and see just how many wonderful, wonderful sailors are hanging out there. Jojo, how are you doing? Great to have you aboard, little lady. Curtis Cross in the house. Jas Kewen, great to see you. Victoria Lee. Victoria Lee, I love that sticker. Val Hall is with us. We got both our mods in the house. We've got Double D, Due Diligence, hanging out tonight. Good to see you, buddy. Prairie Fire is with us. We have got Rooster 55 hanging out. Good to see you, buddy. Rooster's in the hen house. Prayer Warrior Girl. I watched your show last night. You did a wonderful job. Prayer Warrior Girl did a reading from a book, and she did different voices. I was most impressed, Prayer Warrior Girl. You are really stretching your boundaries as a broadcaster. Congratulations. You are a rock star. You're a rock star. Purple Pixie, she wants a Duska doll. Damn it, she wants a Duska doll. On Halloween, we just put Duska on the front porch. We don't need a jack-o'-lantern. All we do is put Duska out front. Nobody ever shows up. Nobody ever comes up to the house. It works. It works. Okay, I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody. It looks like I got all these names, all these wonderful people. LT57 FSH, good to have you aboard. Kristen Hudson, 41. What are you doing? Oh, she's saying goodnight. She was just checking in. We love you, kiddo. I don't know if she's staying or going, but when you are here, we enjoy having you aboard, sister. We really do. We really do. Well, I think that's the entire team over at Pilled Foxhole. Thank you for coming in. Let's check in over at Rumble. Rumble apparently has Fred Cares. That's the only one who's really saying anything. But there looks like, yeah, I don't know if the numbers are going up or if the numbers are going down, but it doesn't matter to me. We're good, and that's all that matters. So that's all 5 platforms. We're rolling everywhere. Folks, tonight, your brother Zoe has got just an atom bomb of a show for you. We're going to talk about some heavy machinery, okay? Some heavy stuff. But I like talking about this kind of stuff because it is mind-blowing. It's wonderful. Okay, so, well, we just heard from the Batman about one of the people we have been praying for. It is a wonderful lady, Phil B. Me Too. Okay, she's a foxholer. She just got out of surgery. It has been, the surgery was a success. We need to pray for this lady. We need to pray for this lady. Phil B. Me Too. Okay. Good. Very good. And last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't say something about this. Okay. We lost a Foxhole broadcaster last night, and no, we didn't lose them. They're still alive. They're still out there. They have just chosen not to broadcast anymore on the platform. And all I can say is the whole thing that brought that about is, it just bothers me. It bothers me greatly. I think that an injustice has been done. I think that I'm just disgusted. That's all. I'm just disgusted. I don't understand why things happened the way they did, but to lose this person who I have a great deal of respect for just seems every single kind of wrong that it could. It bothers me. It really bothers me. So, that I've said my piece. I've said my piece, and we're going to move on down the line. We will be talking tonight about an entity, people, an entity, a wicked entity called the Committee of 300. The Committee of 300. Prepare to have your minds blown. I mean, I'm sure a great many of you are already aware, but maybe you're not. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you've heard the name. Maybe you've heard the expression. But we're going to see just how far-reaching the tentacles of this octopus are, because it is, man, it's a bad deal. It's a freaking bad deal, and we're going to get down to the bottom of it. We're going to look under every rock, in every nook, in every cranny. We will be looking. And it's going to be entertaining. Don't worry. I won't bore you. It's going to be fun. Fred Cares, I freaking love you, lady. She goes, don't worry about the numbers. Many are watching and listening. Thank you, darling. Thank you, Freddie. I really wanted to meet up with Freddie on my trip south. I'm so bummed that my trip got cut short. Okay, we're moving right along. We are going to be back immediately following this short break. Okay, you have just enough time to like refill your drink, take the dog outside, run and take a quick whiz, because for the next hour and 45 minutes, I'm going to have you riveted to your television screen. Riveted. Are you ready? Let's take that little ride. We'll be back immediately. Where's my cursor? I've done it again. There it is. There it is. Oh, it's my battery. That's what's going on. That's what's going on, the damn thing. Okay. We'll be back right after this short video. Don't go places. You want to stay right here with your brother Zoe. With your brother Zoe. Folks, it is your brother Zoe. I am coming to you from a part of New York which I believe they call the East Village. Now, I don't know a whole lot about the East Village, but there is something I can tell you. As you wander down this street, this is called St. Mark's Place. I am just a little bit south of First Avenue. There's a magical little place right here. Magic? What do you mean, Zoe? What's magic about it? Well, let me tell you. Back in 1975, Led Zeppelin, probably my favorite band, shot the front cover of their monumental album, Physical Graffiti, right here. It was, there was some sleight of hand done, and it's been 48 years, things have changed, but let me assure you, without question, I've done my research, the picture on the cover of this album was shot basically right where I'm standing, and let me prove it to you. Here's the album. And there's the building. See the faces? See the faces above the doorways? Well, there they are. This is it. This is it. Now on the album, they had to reduce it to a 3-story building so it would be square. So they chopped the top story off. But that is the album, and that is the actual building. Little piece of history right here in East Village. One other funny little thing about that building. In 1983, 8 years later, the Rolling Stones did an album called Tattoo You, and on it was a very popular song of theirs called I'm Just Waiting on a Friend. If you look at that video, it was also shot right there on that very same doorstep. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards were sitting right there. There must be something magical about this building. It is magical. I've been there. I've listened to the album many, many, many times over the years. Good to have you all aboard. Let's just take one last peek, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Daily Insanity is here. Ginger45, what's up, little lady? Good to see you. I did not see Kate. Is Bad Zoot in the house? I didn't see her. Zoot Allures, where is she? She probably didn't think I was broadcasting tonight. But Rick Carmen is now with us. Good to see you, Brother Rick. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure indeed. There's Zoot. She's there. So now I can continue on. Now I feel good about tonight's broadcast. Thank you, Zoot. Ginger. Holy smokes, she is gifting subscriptions over there. Wow, look at that. A bronze tier. Wow. They're snagging them. Daily Insanity snagged one. Bong Hit snagged one. Wow. Ginger, God bless you, little lady. You are beautiful. Thank you so very, very much for your support of this program. and all of the program. Bruce Q. Wayne just claimed one. That is freaking. That's off the charts. Willie Fixit just claimed one. Thank you, Ginger. You are wonderful. You are wonderful. Hey, no blue pills tonight? Well, I'm sure that'll change. I'm sure that will change. Daily Insanity says, oh my God, I got one. Well, and Joelaine is right on it. She is on it, congratulating all the people who won. Wow. That's very good. Very, very good. So, Rick Carmen, you're a very funny man. Very, very funny man. I'm not going to repeat what you said for the other channels to hear. I just don't think I should. But you're a very, very funny man. Holy smokes, people. We have a comic in the house. We have a comic in the house. Okay, so let us get a gander. Let's get a gander at. All right, we're live here. We're live there. Everything seems to be up and running. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Okay, tonight, your brother Zoe wants to talk to you about a little something called the Committee of 300. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, I know kind of what that is. Isn't that like those Club of Rome people, or aren't they part of the Illuminati, or aren't they linked to like the WHO or the all of the bad guys? Well, the answer is yes. All of them. They're all intertwined. It's just a mess. It is a mess is what it is. But where did the Committee of 300 come from? And more importantly, what possessed your brother Zoe to discuss this topic tonight? Well, folks, I'm diving in head first. And a very funny thing happened on the way to the circus. Last Sunday night, I was perusing the channels, and I came across a friend's channel, and there was almost no one watching. Seriously, there was, I think, 2 people watching. And a video came on that I had seen before, but may God strike me dead, I hadn't seen this video in some 25 years. 25. The video was it has now been digitized, okay? But it came from somebody's old VHS recording. I kind of love those when you push play on the video and it takes a second and you can see the lines and then the tracking lines up. Remember the good old days of VHS? And how many people? I'm curious. How many people had Beta? How many people had Beta and not VHS? Because Beta had the better audio system. It was a true defined stereo if you had Beta. Who had Beta? I'll admit I was a VHS guy. I was a VHSer, but Beta was another way. Why have one thing when you can have 2? You know what I mean? Okay, so I'm watching this program, and it is a dissertation by a very wise writer. The man is a Briton. I believe he is a Briton, although he might be from South Africa. He could possibly be from down under, but I think he is from Great Britain. He's very British. He's very British in the way he speaks. His name is Dr. John Coleman. Dr. John Coleman. And let me tell you about this man. There are researchers, and then there are researchers. I'm talking the likes of G. Edward Griffin, that kind of prowess. Some of the other wonderful Guys, let's see, most of them are dead now, but guys like Jordan Maxwell, who really knows his stuff. Mars. There was a guy named Mars, Maars. I can't think of his first name right now, but he reported. This guy was the first guy ever reporting on the Bilderberg group. Okay, Mars, and he got into the weeds with these people. He seriously did a lot of exposing. Well, this particular gentleman I'm talking to you about tonight, Dr. John Coleman, I happen to have the video. Now, it's an hour and 45 minutes long. I'm not going to be able to play the whole thing, and I most certainly will drop a link to it so that you can watch it. And people, I am telling you, you need to watch this video, okay? I can't emphasize enough how credible this man is. But more importantly, this video is some 30 years old. When you hear him speak in the video, you hear him talking about Bush. When he says Bush, he's talking about President Bush Sr. I watched this thing like 4 times to refresh my memory, and because I hadn't seen it in so long, and I was just hanging on this man's every word, Dr. Coleman's every word. The man is so learned, and he is so researched. This man's travels have taken him all over the globe, like 6 different continents, and sometimes he would spend 5 years in one location studying. That's the dedication of Dr. John Coleman. The man is. So I tried to do some research on just him. Okay? I tried to find out A, how old he is, B, where he's from. The only information I was able to ascertain is in 1969 he moved and became an American. Okay, he became an American in 1969, and the reason he became an American is because he said that our Constitution, the United States Constitution, is second to only one other writing in the entire globe, and that is the Bible. He said that the Constitution is the single most important document ever written next to the Bible. And he is a constitutional scholar, much like Chris Ann Hall. Those of you who watch, quite frankly, with any regularity. By the way, she's going to be on his program the first week of November, right after daylight savings. Don't miss it. Chris Ann Hall is the bomb. No, this man is a writer, and he has written books. Now, let me tell you something about his books, okay? He wrote a book. He wrote a book on the Committee of 300. I believe he wrote it in 1980, okay? After something like 13 years, I think 15 years of research. I think that's what he said. He's written other books. One of his biggest sellers is a book called, and I'm really reaching deep in the gray matter here. I mean, I am scooping out the back part of my brain here. Socialism, the Road to Slavery. I believe that's what it's called. Let me Google that to make sure I'm on top of things. Socialism, the Road to Slavery, Dr. John Coleman. Yes, Yes. There we go. There we go. The amazing thing about this man is all of his published works, all of Dr. John Coleman's published works are off the market. Okay? His work, his body of work is so powerful, and the entities that he exposes are so afraid of this guy that they have done everything in their power to make it impossible to read his works, his collective works. And this is taking forever to load up, but it looks like I will be able to show you the cover of this book, Socialism, The Road to Slavery. Oh, come on. So, anyway, the man is off the charts. Please write down his name, Dr. John Coleman, exactly as it sounds. I'm going to drop a link to the video, and we're going to watch a little bit of it. We're going to watch a bit of it. Let me share some of the prime information that he shares in this video. So back in the day, people, back in the day when America was first born and the founding fathers wrote the Constitution of the United States, King George III knew right then and there that he knew what would happen. He knew that an unbridled country like the United States, if left to its own devices, would flourish. It would explode. It would be popular. The whole world would want to live there. It would be the greatest social experiment in history, human history, the United States, because the Constitution guarantees each of us freedoms that cannot be taken away from us. Well, that is, as long as we continue to fight for them, okay? In this man's video, he goes on and on to say that you know damn well they're not teaching the Constitution in our schools, because if they taught the Constitution in our schools to our children, this would be a vastly different country than what we live in right now. What they want is what they got: a dumbed down public that is not paying attention. We have a bunch of couch potatoes that are complacent. They don't, and I'm not talking about you wonderful people. You guys all know what the hell is going on, okay? I know you're smelling what I'm stepping in, but I'm saying the brunt of our brothers and sisters known as Americans, the mouth breathers that you see walking down the aisles of the mall or at Walmart, you know them. Yeah, those people, okay? They don't know what the hell is going on. They need people like us to awaken them. They need people like Dr. John Coleman to awaken them. He sported some statistics and some information in this video that I'm going to share with you that is just, it was painful. It was painful to watch. I remember as I was rewatching this video for the first time in some 20-something years, I felt the ire building inside of me. It made me burn inside for my country. I love this country, people. I love this country. My dad taught me to love this country. My dad's dad was born somewhere else at the turn of last century, he recognized the abilities that someone could have if they lived in America. He learned to speak the language. He and his very young wife came over in the late 20s, became Americans. They had a sponsor. They learned how to speak the language. They did it the good old fashioned way through Ellis Island. They didn't sneak over a border somewhere and have someone hand them a checkbook and give them housing and medical coverage. And he didn't have any of that. They didn't stay in the Waldorf Astoria in New York. No. They stayed with friends until he got on his feet. He immediately got a job, and thus my family was born. What was recognized by the powers that be, and by the powers that be, I'm talking about the Committee of 300, is they recognized right away that if America, the young country of America, if it wasn't, quote unquote, dealt with, if it wasn't dealt with, it would run away, and the whole rest of the world would be dragging behind it, begging for just a piece of its glory. And America, for the first 110 years, 115 years, was exactly that. It was the envy of the world. Everyone dreamed of coming here. But these underlying powers, they recognized that America had to be taken down. And here's what it is. Here's what made America different than any other country in history. In our very short history, what are we, 243, 40, what, how many years old are we? 46? I don't know how old we are right now, but it's coming up. Anyway, these people realized the thing that made us different than any other country in Britain, in Italy, name a country, name a freaking country, okay? And what you had over there was the powerful elites that ran the country, whether it was a king and his servants or whatever. And then you had all the plebes, okay? The peasants, all right? The ones who were taxed to death, the ones who had to turn over all of the fruits of their labors. They had to turn in a percentage of their whatever they made to the king, okay? What made America different than everybody else was the fact that we had something called a middle class. And who were these middle class people? These were well-educated people who made damn good money. They could afford the nicer things in life, like quality vacations, nice homes, clothing, cars, and better yet, this young American breed of middle-class people, they could afford the goods that were sold right here in the good old U.S. of A. Okay? They didn't have to buy foreign junk. George Washington, in one of his very, very first addresses, told his constituents that In order for America to thrive, the first thing that they had to do, the very first thing that they had to do, was impose a tariff. The young America had to impose a tariff on all the goods coming in from other countries. That way, all imports cost more. What that meant is people would shy away from foreign imports and they would buy American. What that would do is it would make America flourish, okay? If there weren't enough shoes to be had, there would new shoe companies would pop up. If there weren't enough pick something. American commerce was deemed of ultimate importance to George Washington. And to protect America's commerce, they put tariffs on imported goods. When the powers that be learned of this, they said, oh no, we got to do away with this. We got to make this go away. Then they set their sights even bigger. They said, in fact, we not only have to do away with that, we need to introduce free trade. Free trade. So in other words, other countries could peddle their wares here in America. These powers that be, these people known as the Committee of 300, they decided to do away with our middle class. And you don't do that with the flick of a switch, people. It takes generations to pull off a trick like that, okay? It wasn't going to happen overnight. But they knew how to do it because they're masters of it. They have been dominating people across the planet for years. And King George III was one of the first people to envision a one world government. Okay? He and his constituents already had a plan. They had been talking to 30, 40 other countries around the globe about their long-term plan to have a one world government. This whole America experiment really chapped their hide, put a freaking wrench right in their gears, right in their freaking gears. They knew that they had to stop this American experiment. And they did it by infiltration. Okay? Now, this Committee of 300, who exactly are these bad people? And believe me, they are bad people. I can tell you that to this very day, they are the ones in control of America's purse strings. They are the ones who select our presidents. They are the ones who come up with things like Agenda 2030. They're the ones who come up with things like the Federal Reserve. They are masters of manipulation. They have been doing it for hundreds of years. But who they are the descendants, I'm sure that at least some of us who paid attention back in school, back in probably your American history class, you remember your teachers. I remember my nun. It was my 4th grade teacher who taught me about this. The Dutch East India Company. The Dutch East India Company. Now, it's funny. when I remember back to my very Catholic nun teaching us about the Dutch East India Company, well, it was just sort of glanced over. It was described as this group of entrepreneurs who liked to move tea, liked to move spices. They didn't talk so much about the slave trade or the opium that they were growing in India and then moved down to China and pretty much made all of the Chinese opium junkies. She never said anything about that. Pretty amazing. It's these same people, the descendants of the owners of the Dutch East India Company that ran the world's trade back in the good old days, 300 years ago. The descendants of those people, they are so rich, they are so filthy rich, that they make the Rockefellers look like pikers, okay? They make them look like absolute freaking pikers. They have a plan, and they're sticking to it. And their plan is, folks, it's almost complete, okay? What are their plans? Depopulation of the planet, implementing higher and higher and higher taxes. But their biggest plan is the destruction of the middle class of America, because that is what they learned they can't control, okay? Back in the good old days, when they ruled with an iron fist over all of the peasants, there was no middle class. There wasn't a middle class. You were just either poor little peasants who gave what little bit you had to the king, but there was no middle class. And America's middle class was far more than a middle class. They could afford all the luxuries of life. They were well paid. They bought quality American goods. They received quality education right here in the good old US of A. And that's when they got together with their greedy little counterparts and said to the Rockefellers, you, we want you to take over the education system. We want to start indoctrinating these people. And back at the turn of last century, in a very philanthropic move, the Rockefellers said, what if we take over the schools in America? We'll donate to these schools. We'll make them fine halls of learning. We'll pay for the textbooks. We'll pay for the teachers' salaries. We'll add on to we'll build you new beautiful buildings. Just, you don't mind if we put a couple people on the board down there, right? I mean, if we do all this good for you, you don't mind if we have a couple people on the board down there. And that's how the whole damn thing works. Infiltration. They have long since known how to do this stuff. But they saw America as the biggest threat to one world domination that they, and we still are. We are hanging by a thread, people, but we're still fighting. We are not giving up. We're not giving up this damn ship. Ever. Ever. Dr. Coleman in his in this video, and I will share this video with you. And again, I encourage you. I encourage you to watch the entire thing. I encourage you to somehow find his books, buy his books, educate yourself, because we all know about things like the Illuminati, or what they say is the Illuminati, but this man's life work is research, and he has spelled it out right down. I mean, this guy gets down into the weeds. I had one of his books. I can't even remember which one I had, but I had one of his books. And so when after refreshing my memory by watching this video, I thought, what the hell? I'm just going to go online and I'm just going to order one. I couldn't find them. The book that was formerly known as The Committee of 300 now has a new title, okay? They have erased this man's work. They have taken all of his books off of the shelves so that you can't find them anymore. You might find a dusty old copy maybe in a used bookstore, maybe. But you're not going to buy brand new ones online. They're not there. I learned that they changed the name of his novel, and probably to disguise it so that people could still publish it and get the word out to one another from awakened soul to awakened soul. The book is now called 217. Now, I don't know the relevance of that. All I can tell you is the book that was formerly The Committee of 300 is now known as 217. That's all I can tell you. His other amazing book, Socialism, The Road to Slavery, is also out of print. Can't get it. Can't find it. Look for it. Okay? You're not going to find it at Barnes and Noble. You're not going to find it on Amazon. The only place you're going to find it is in maybe old used bookstores. Okay? Dr. John Coleman. I really should get to the guy's video. Yes, we have time. We have time. I'm gonna share this man's video with you. I'm gonna drop the link to him. Please, I'm telling you, copy this link down and watch this video. There are certain portions I am not going to be able to play for you because this man has researched everything from bioweapons, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. To everything. He's a constitutional scholar. He has dug deeper than anybody. You think that there's great researchers out there sharing their information, and nowadays the truth tellers that we have are guys like Tucker Carlson or maybe Glenn Beck or perhaps Sean Hannity. Okay, I'm telling you that guys like this pale in comparison to guys like Dr. John Coleman, G. Edward Griffin, that Mars character I was telling you about. These are the men who loved this country and made their life's work research. None of these guys are millionaire television personalities. But the information that they're willing to share is first rate, and their entire life's work is sharing this in the hopes of saving America. Let me find this. Let me play it. Give me just a second. I think what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play a short little video for you while I get this queued up for you. That is exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play one of my little teeny tiny short videos while I get this queued up, and then I'll be dropping links and we'll go from there. How's that sound? How does that sound? Nope, that's not what I wanted to do.
Why do we
Stop it. Stop it. That's not what I wanted to do at all. Is that it? Yes, that's the one I wanted to share. Keep yourselves entertained by this, and when this is over, I will have something really groovy for you to watch and enjoy. All right, I'm going to skip out of this. I'm going to jump right out of this. I'm coming back at you. Here I am. Okay, once again, I just want to say this. Imagine a man. Imagine a man who was a foreigner. A man who was a foreigner, but he's a learned man. He's a man who has studied. And he was so impressed with his reading and his studying of the United States Constitution that he decided to come and live here for the rest of his life. Then he made it his life's work to preserve this country. A man who wasn't born here. His life's work is he's part of a thing called Wake Up America. And this is from 30 years ago. This man has been doing this. He recognized the problems 50 years ago. That's how long he's been trying to wake people up. I pray that there are more men like this in the world. Let me share this video with you. Let me pull this up right here. I'm going to take this. I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to blow this up. And there it is. This man, he has just been introduced. He has just been introduced by someone else, and I will let him do the talking. How's that sound? We'll let Dr. John Coleman do the talking. I will be dropping the link to this in all of the chats. Please, I beg of you to watch this video in its entirety.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that great welcome. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to be among you here this morning. Looking at all these big fellows around the place, I feel a little small in stature, but I would remind you what Wellington told the German General Blücher at Waterloo when he rode up to inspect Wellington's troops. He saw the Scotch and the Irish Guards on the hillside. He rode through them and he turned to Wellington and said, "They're rather small, aren't they?" And Wellington said, "Yes, but they don't run away." Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you a message of hope, not fear. A message that I hope will galvanize us all into much needed action. The problem is quite simple. Anarchy and chaos prevails in Washington, D.C. because the federal government has seized powers to which it is not entitled to and is passing masses of laws that are 100% unconstitutional. And when you get men setting themselves up as greater than the Constitution of the United States, you get anarchy and eventually tyranny. Now, I'm paranoid. I'm going to admit to you right up front. But let me tell you what the real meaning of the word paranoid is. It is a man or a person who has the ability to link events that seemingly are not connected. That is the true meaning of paranoia, or being paranoid. Of course, it's been used by our enemies, the socialists, the Marxists, the liberals, the so-called progressives, to smear us. How many times haven't I heard it said of me, "That fellow's paranoid"? Yes, I'm glad to admit it, because I have the ability to connect events that are seemingly unconnected. And when you do that, you begin to arrive at the truth. It's taken me 25 years to come to the conclusions that I have come to. And I want to tell you that one of the biggest things I discovered in my work was the existence of a supranational committee composed of 300 men. I came across this quite by accident when I was serving in Africa, in Angola, and I was given a series of documents which were only supposed to be handed in to top-level people. They were what we called above the top level of classification of intelligence documents. And there I discovered that whilst I thought I was in Africa fighting against the invasion of the communists, I was in fact fighting to introduce socialist regimes in the black African countries, and that I was actually working for a committee called the Committee of 300, also known in intelligence circles as the Olympians. I'll stop right there, and I want to digress for a moment and tell you the word intelligence has been bandied around a great deal in the United States. I've seen people writing this and that and the other intelligence newsletter. They really have no experience whatsoever. In 1986, I wrote a work called Mind Control, Metaphysics, Extremely Low Frequency Radiation, and Weather Modifications. And in that work, July the 8th, 1986, I said that the top-level intelligence organization in the United States was the National Reconnaissance Office, far bigger than the CIA and any of the other intelligence agencies. And by the way, we have about 10 different ones in the United States. And I even had the audacity to give the address of this organization. 3 weeks ago, Mr. Sam Donaldson, the gentleman who wears that beautiful toupee so effectively, he came on with a program in prime time, and he said, this is one of the biggest scoops that ABC has ever had. And he told about the National Reconnaissance Organization. The exact same thing that I published 8 years earlier. I tell you this to set the stage so that you'll understand I do have some experience and that I know that of which I speak. You know, the American people are somewhat like the Irish. I'm sure you've heard the story of the Irishman who got shipwrecked, and after many days he was washed up on an island, and as he staggered along the beach, some people came out of the trees waving spears, and he said to them, is there a government here? And they said, yes. He said, well, then I'm against it. Liberty is based on individual freedom. We are individual people. We are not the mass, so disdainfully referred to by Karl Marx and the socialist writers. We objected to a tax of a penny a pound on tea when King George of the Venetian Party of the North, now that's probably the first time you've heard that expression. It took me 5 years of digging in the British Museum in London, which I consider to be the finest repository of knowledge in the world, to come up with that name. That was what the party of King George was called, and we'll come to the reason for that. But our colonists said, we're not going to pay this penny a pound on tea. Today, we are being driven on our knees by a tyrannical government, which is imposing all sorts of taxes upon us, and worse than that, trammeling on and tramping on the Constitution of the United States of America, which is the second greatest document in the world next to the Bible. And if we could rebel against the mighty powers of King George III, the most potent force in the world at that time, then, ladies and gentlemen, it is time that we rebelled against a federal government that is trammeling the Constitution underfoot every day of the week. King George III of the Venetian Party of the North did more than that. He sent Adam Smith, a servant of the British East India Company, to formulate a policy which he called free trade. And by the means of free trade, Adam Smith, a greatly beloved economist of the Marxists, the socialists, and the liberals, hoped to bring the small manufactories and the industries established by the colonists to their knees. Let me tell you unequivocally that free trade is piracy. There is no such thing as free trade. We have to reject this constant brainwashing to which we are subjected. Free trade began with Adam Smith and the British East India Company. Now, who is the British East India Company? They played a massive role in the history of the United States of America. Only you are not taught this in your schools or in your universities, but you need to know. In my book, The Committee of 300, which took 20 years of research, and incidentally, I was only a little bit behind with Karl Marx. He spent 30 years in the British Museum in London, where he got most of his things from. I point out that the British East India Company was the most powerful trading company in the world. They made their massive monies out of the dope trade. They first grew prime poppies in Kew Gardens in Kensington, London, got the best producing opium poppies. They then shipped them to Benares in India, where they began a massive plantation of poppies, opium-producing poppies. They then used their famous tea clippers to transport the poppies in the form of raw opium to China, and by their military force they imposed an opium policy on China that turned the Chinese nation into a nation of addicts. And they enforced this policy, which was known to the royal family and Lord Gladstone, the Prime Minister, and every one of the lords and ladies in England. And they made a massive, huge fortune in researching these documents in India House in London. I came across some of the manifests of the old tea clippers and the numbers of kegs of opium they carried in the values. And I totaled up these things, and I found to my astonishment that if we took 1970 as an optimum year for profits in General Motors and Ford, in 1 year, the opium trade with China was 3 times the profits of the combined profits of Ford and General Motors in 1970. And this was shared by 300 people. That was the committee that ran the British East India Company. They all had equal voting rights. They could not outvote each other, and of course they were sworn to secrecy. The descendants of the British East India Company today run the United States. And I will hope to prove my thesis as we go along. They also interfered in the development of the United States on every occasion. They armed the Indians, they armed the people against the settlers who were pushing west. They ran the Hudson's Bay Company. They also ran so-called mission stations in China and got these missionaries who were really not missionaries at all to push opium on the Chinese. And I remember a conversation with the late Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, Prime Minister of Egypt, President of Egypt, and Mohammed Aikel, one of the top journalists, with Zhou Enlai. And Zhou Enlai told him, he said, you know, the Americans and the British made China a nation of opium addicts, and now with the Vietnam War, it's our turn. We are going to make the Americans a nation of opium addicts. So you can see the influence, the evil, baleful influence of the British East India Company upon the great nation of the United States of America. They were the ones who financed the war. They put up the money for the British troops to buy the Hessian mercenaries and to fight the colonists. Those brave 3%, let me remind you that only 3% of the people took arms and stood up against the mighty army of King George III. We are 3% here this morning, but that's enough for us to withstand the mighty force of the federal government of the United States of America. These 300 men in the Committee of 300 still run the world today with an iron fist. Their wealth is untold, cannot be measured. I know I looked at some of the records that I could find in Italy, in Rome. I've done most of my work on location, and this has always been invaluable to me. And I came across the families in Italy who were called the Fondi, meaning the people who had all the money. They were all members of the Committee of 300, the Lucatis, the Recanatis, the Volpi du Miseratis. These people are so wealthy that they would make David Rockefeller look like a piker. That is how rich they are. And this is the committee that runs the world. Now, in my book, The Committee of 300, I name every one of them. This is not a book that talks about they. It gives you specifics. And I must say I do the same thing in my new book, Socialism, The Road to Slavery, which was 10 years in researching. On July the 4th, 1789, George Washington told the Congress, it is necessary for us to impose tariffs to protect the manufactories of our colonies. That was the first trade barrier. Now, let us dispose for once and for all with the words that have been implanted on our minds, like isolationist, and you are for restricted trade, and you are against global trade. The United States of America did not grow great on global trade. The United States of America grew great on the hard labor of the people who lived in those days and the wise protection barriers put up by President George Washington, because immediately after the war, the British tried to down the United States through so-called free trade, which is nothing but piracy. Free trade, ladies and gentlemen, is a one-way street which allows other countries to dump their products on our markets to the detriment of our own people. That's what free trade is. It's strictly a one-way street. The trade barriers were increased by Lincoln, Garfield, and McKinley, and all three presidents paid with their lives for that policy. Disraeli was particularly incensed with Lincoln. Disraeli was the British Prime Minister at the time, and he ordered British MI6 to assassinate Lincoln, which is what they did, the same way as British MI6 publicly executed President John F. Kennedy at a later time. Our founding fathers and our presidents saw the value of trade barriers. They realized that we, if we wanted to progress, were not to be the dumping ground of the world. And I'm going to leave that subject for now and return to it later. The format that I want to use this morning is the type of questions that are most often asked of me. I've spoken to hundreds of thousands of people across the United States and worldwide, and I've been on many, many radio shows, and these type of questions, we note them, and this is what comes up most of all. Who and what is the Committee of 300? Well, I've dealt with that. I've told you this is a supranational body that knows no boundaries, respects the laws of no countries. The first time that they were publicly announced was by a German socialist by the name of Walter Rathenau. Now, I'll give you some background of Walter Rathenau. He was the financial advisor to the Kaiser of Germany, and he was also the financial advisor to the Rothschilds, the French family Rothschild. So he must have known what he's talking about. He made an astonishing statement in 1934. He said, there is a committee of 300 men that rule the world. They are known only to each other, and nothing happens without their consent. When former head of state Mikhail Gorbachev visited the United States a few years ago, flanked by George Bush and Quayle, he opened his Gorbachev Foundation in the United States. And he let slip, he said, this is being done with approval of the Committee of 300. CNN cameras were on him. They immediately switched. Now, I wrote to CNN and I said, could I have a transcript of this program, which they said was available. I never got a reply. I followed it up with letter after letter, but nothing ever came of it. The point I'm trying to make, ladies and gentlemen, is that the federal government, the secret upper-level parallel government that runs the United States, does not want you to know that you have an upper-level parallel government that calls the shots, that dictates what is going to happen to your life and mine. So that's how I found out about the Committee of 300. The next question is, what are their goals? Their goals are a one-world government, latterly called the New World Order. The one-world government began with King George III. At the time that the colonists were brave enough to take him on, King George was already busy formulating a one-world government, and he had lined up at least 50 countries that were willing to come into this future world dictatorship with him. The goals then, very simply stated, are to make the world over into a one-world, new world order dictatorship controlled utterly and completely by this Committee of 300. How can they possibly carry out their goals? That's the next question that I'm often asked. They do it by dint and by virtue of their fantastic wealth and the fact that they control thousands of the top banking institutions, the political organizations, insurance companies. In fact, one of the giant insurance companies, a man called me and said, "Do you mean to tell me that they are controlling the Metropolitan of New York?" I said, "The Metropolitan of New York is peanuts." He said, "How can you say that? That's a giant American company." I said, "Well, compared with the Assicurenzi de Generali de Venezia, it's peanuts. That's the biggest insurance company in the world. They control in that organization everything that happens in the world in the insurance field comes out of Venice. That's why Venice is so important, because in Venice we have the black nobility. Now that has nothing to do with the color of the skin of the people, and I'm going to come back to them as we go along. So the goals are a one-world dictatorship of the most brutal kind, and how they carry it out is they have these interface banks, insurance companies, mining conglomerates, every conceivable control in politics, including the Democrat Party of the United States, which is, of course, since 1980 behind closed doors at a secret caucus in Washington, D.C. The Democrat hierarchy took on the goals of the old Socialist Party USA, i.e., based upon the Communist Manifesto of 1848. If you have a copy of my book, and I'm not pushing it, but in my book, The Committee of 300, I list every one of their huge, gigantic corporations, how they interface. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is an eye-opener, because it gets right down to the nitty-gritty of your everyday life in the cities and towns across the United States. So they carry out their goals through existing organizations. And also, of course, they have built up some special organizations of their own. When I first started writing in America, when I came here in 1969, I revealed the existence of an organization called the Royal Institute for International Affairs, which is located at Chatham House in 10 St. James Square in London. I also revealed the existence of the Club of Rome, the Cini Foundation, the Mont Pelerin Society, the Order of St. John, which was known but not known. And I listed all of these secret societies that run the world as executive arms of the Committee of 300. So it controls the world through all of these. The Royal Institute for International Affairs is the executive arm of this committee, which gives instructions to the United States government to this very day. The chain of command is as follows. Every Secretary of State that has been appointed since 1919 is appointed by the Royal Institute for International Affairs. That may come as a shock for you. You think you vote and you put a conservative in the White House, and then he appoints supposedly or allegedly conservative people to carry out the policies that you wanted him to implement. Surprise, surprise. I ask you to find me a conservative Secretary of State since 1919. And if you search diligently and apply the correct rules, you will come out blank. Every one of the Secretaries of State was chosen in London by the Secretary of State, as was Wilson, the President Wilson, as was Roosevelt, as was James Earl Carter. He was specially chosen because he'd had 3 mental breakdowns, and they felt he would be a good guy to manipulate. Oh, I'm talking facts. I'll tell you the story of that. In my World in Review news magazine, I wrote that, James, I'm digressing a bit here, but it's necessary to do that now and then. It's not a sign of a bad speaker, although I don't put any laurels around my own neck. But James Earl Carter was not a known entity in the American scene. I first heard of him through my intelligence contacts, particularly my French sources, who were one of the best in the world after MI6. And he told me, your next president is going to be a peanut farmer from Georgia. And I said, how come? He said, right now they're meeting at the Dorchester Hotel in London. And if you get your Fanny over there, he said, you'll find that there's a lot of goings-on you might like to look at. And lo and behold, that's what was happening. The Royal Institute for International Affairs had ordered David Rockefeller to find a candidate who was totally weak, preferably a little mentally weak. And they put one of the greatest brainwashing specialists in the world, trained by the Tavistock Institute for Human Relations, Dr. Peter Bourne, on the job. And he said, it's funny you should say that. One of my patients is a guy from Georgia, James Earl Carter, and this guy can't take rejection, and he's been to me 3 times for a nervous breakdown. So they hiked Carter over to London and feted him at the Dorchester Hotel, which is a very ritzy place. And they feted him and wined and dined him. And the next thing we saw, Time, Newsweek, every newspaper in the country, James Earl Carter. Now we, in our little magazine, World in Review, we told those of our subscribers, this man is your next president. We also did exactly the same thing with William Jefferson Clinton, because we had the story of the Club of Rome. We knew who Agnelli was. We knew that Agnelli had a huge love affair with Mrs. Pamela Harriman, and that Mrs. Pamela Harriman was the doyen of the Democrat Party, and Mrs. Harriman had been given the task of finding the next president of the United States, a socialist. And she picked up Clinton and said, "You're our boy." But there's one snag. Clinton went up there brushing his forelock back and said, "Well, you know, there's one problem. My wife's left me." So Mrs. Harriman was dumbfounded. She said, "Well, you better give it back in a hurry." And he said, "No, she doesn't want to come back to me because of my tryst with other women." That's how he put it. My philanderings would have been a better word, but he said tryst with other women. So Mrs. Harriman sent for Mrs. Clinton, and she duly came to New York, and she sat her down and said, "Look, if you want to be the first lady of America with all the attendant prestige and power, you better forget about your husband's philanderings and get right back to him." And that is precisely what happened. And when I heard that had happened, I knew this guy was the next president. And we wrote that in our news magazine. And sure enough, a year later, here came marching into the scene William Jefferson Clinton. So the RIA, the Royal Institute for International Affairs, does control everything that happens in the United States. They give their orders to the Morgan Guarantee and Trust Bank on Wall Street. And the chief executive officer of that organization is Dennis Weatherstone. And he duly relays the orders over to the Secretary of State, whoever that happens to be. And he then relays the orders to the President. There was one exception to this, and that was during the illegal, 100% unconstitutional Gulf War. Now, I'm going to use a word, and I apologize to the ladies for this, but I need to tell you this graphically to illustrate the power that the Royal Institute for International Affairs exercises over the affairs of the United States of America. When George Bush was hesitating and didn't know whether he should get into the Gulf or not, the Prime Minister of Britain, Mrs. Margaret Thatcher, came over to the Committee of 300's headquarters at the Aspen Institute, Colorado, and this is the phone call that she had with George Bush. She said, "George, this is Margaret. Apologies to you, ladies president. Get your ass up here. I've got some orders for you about the Gulf War." And Bush went scurrying up there like a little messenger boy. And the next thing we know, there was this massive outpouring of propaganda to start a war against the nation of Iran, a nation that had never done this country one iota of harm. I use those illustrations in order to give you the extent of the control that is exercised by this Committee of 300. There are many other societies that are operating for the RIIA. The Illuminati, which has been around for many, many years. I've written a work called The Illuminati in America, 1784 to 1994. A lot of people think this is an ancient secret society that's gone away. They think that Adam Weishaupt had a quarrel with the Catholic Church and that's it. Don't you believe it? 13 of the top families in the United States are in the Illuminati today, and they have a big say on everything that happens politically in this country. Then we have the Society of Cincinnati, which I don't think many of you will have heard about. That is an ultra secret society to which every president of the United States is forced to belong, including our so-called conservative presidents. And I point this out to you to show you that it doesn't matter who is in the White House. This Committee of 300, through the Royal Institute for International Affairs, through the Council on Foreign Relations, exercises complete control. But their strongest arm is called the Club of Rome. Now, when I first heard of the Club of Rome in 1969, I immediately began my investigation. And as Ken told you, all of my investigations have been done on location. Every one of them. The Club of Rome is one of the most insidious, baneful organizations in existence today, which has done intolerable, immeasurable harm to the United States of America. This Committee of 300 told a man called Aurelio Pecci to form this Club of Rome with the main object of bringing down the industries and the agricultural development of the United States. He immediately wrote a paper in which he said there are too many people on the earth and that the United States, with its industrial development, its agricultural development, is responsible for this curse of overpopulation. And he picked up the documentation for his work from Lord Bertrand Russell, a senior statesman of the Committee of 300. And Lord Bertrand Russell had written a work called The Impact of...
So, folks, this man, seriously, I cannot tell you how much I encourage you to watch this entire video. Even though this video is probably close to 30 years old, it is as relevant today, and he exposes so much. It's just mind-boggling, and it proves how much he did his homework. When you watch this entire video, he predicts things that are going to happen in the future, and they pretty much all came true. But the sad things that he points out is he pointed out that this Committee of 300 set out to destroy American commerce, and to do that, they had to rid America of all of its manufacturing. So one of the first things they set their sights on was the steel industry, and he goes on to say how, like from Ohio up all through the Great Lakes area, that for years and years and years, generations, fathers passed down to sons the trade of shipbuilding. And that he goes on to say that in 1980, the United States produced 5,000 brand new seaworthy giant ships for trade, commerce, whatever, ocean-going giant vessels made with United States steel. Then he said by 1985, a mere 5 years later, thanks to the shutdown of steel mills and everything, which was all planned, by 1985, we only produced 247 ships, and that all the men who were shipbuilders, I mean, we are talking tradesmen, generational tradesmen, fathers, sons, grandfathers, who brought their family in, who lived good lives, making good money with good insurance and good health plans and nice homes, and afforded all the luxuries of life. They got rid of these jobs, and now these shipbuilders are reduced to being a night watchman at Walmart. Okay, this man goes on with his facts. He talks about everything from the shoe industry to he just lays it all out there. He lays it all out there. He points out that things like Agenda 2030 all come from this Committee of 300, and that there are sects. There are sects of the Committee of 300, like the Club of Rome, and that each of these little sects have their own unique mission. The Club of Rome, their mission was to reduce the world's population and to reduce America's ability to feed the world. I mean, America has the ability to feed the entire planet. For 60, 70, 80 years, they have been paying farmers not to produce to their full capability, because if they did, there would be such surpluses, the cost of food would be peanuts. You'd be giving it away. We could feed the world. We could. This man's speech is so moving, and I mean, it's so soul stirring. I've put the link out there 10 times. Please, I'll do it one last time. Please take the time to watch this. I'm trying to find out if the guy's still alive or not. Some people seem to think that he may have passed away from a heart attack back in 1999. I can't confirm that, but who knows? Who knows? All I do know is if there were other people with this man's drive and ambition to awaken others and make people aware of what the heck is going on around us, the world would be different. This man was a living, breathing digital soldier 30 years before the expression existed, okay? He and his contemporaries, G. Edward Griffin, Jim Marrs, these guys have been getting out the word for years. Like I say, I first saw this video I think I saw it in like 2004 or 2005. And I remember when I first saw it, it was very, very close to my original awakening. And my God, it made my blood boil. I've posted links to his different books. Find them if you can, okay? Socialism, The Road to Slavery. The other one is called The Committee of 300. He's done books of all kinds of books, all freaking kinds of books. That one though, Conspirators' Hierarchy, The Story of the Committee of 300. Find it if you can. That's the one I had, Conspirators' Hierarchy. So man, it is amazing. It is freaking amazing. I want to thank the wonderful people who have donated to this show this evening. Let me shout out some beautiful, beautiful people. My dear sister, Ginger45. She put out just a whole bunch of subscriptions to my show. God bless her. And they were won by a whole bunch of people. Batman and Daily Insanity and Willie Fix-It. I also want to thank my dear brother Rooster55 and Due Diligence and Ginger45 for donating again. And also Sean Joe and Chatty KC. Thank you so much, Chatty. You are wonderful. And look at that. Joy Lane claimed a silver tier subscription. That is freaking awesome. That is absolutely freaking awesome. I also want to thank the wonderful people over at DLive who have been pumping lemons into the lemon jar. God bless you guys. Thank you again for your support of this program. Somebody over there, Amethyst Cat, she also donated a subscription, which was picked up by, was it Was it Jayla 17? Not sure. I'm not sure. But thank you guys. Thank you guys over there. Let me put a little something inside this treasure chest for you. Let's get that donated into the chest so I can release the rewards over there and see you guys win some lemons. And now let's go over to Pilled Foxhole and release that scratchin'. Bingo. The scratchin' is officially released. The scratchin' is released. Thank you all for your support of this program and every program that you support out there. The little guys like me are just trying to get the word out. We're trying to get the word out. It is a lifelong mission for some people. Well done, Amethyst Cat. Well done. Look at that. Very good. Well, Prairie Fire says, looks like Dr. Coleman was around as recently as 2005. I like it. I'm going to look that up. Thank you, brother. Control C. Let's see what I can find out about him. I'm going to look that up. All right. Well, look at our winners over here. T.L. Spud, Val Kimber, Amethyst Cat, Sleeping Stars, Bad Zoot. How wonderful. Lynn Winters is the one who won the subscription. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. I knew it was in there somewhere, Lynn. I can't remember things for more than 5 minutes anymore. I can't. Thanks to all of you beautiful people for coming in and hanging out here tonight. I do appreciate you to no end, to absolutely no end. God bless our country. God bless our people. We got to keep fighting, folks. We got to keep spreading the word. I wish there were more men like this out here, but by us sharing his work continues on. If anybody finds out any information on this guy, like how to contact him, if he is still alive, if he's still with us, he'd probably be in his 80s, maybe even 90. But I couldn't find anything. I personally couldn't find anything on his death. So that makes me hope he's still out there somewhere. I would love to ask him his thoughts about number 45. I really would. I really, really would. All right, folks, your brother Zoe has got to check out. I've got a gnarly day tomorrow. I wish you all a wonderful rest of your week. God bless everybody. Have a great, great rest of your week. I freaking love each and every one of you. Take care, my friends.